A satellite passes quietly overhead. Nobody on the ground notices it. But in offices from Pretoria to Lagos, that small dot in the sky has become a problem. Because that satellite is part of Starlink. And Starlink is doing something no government on the continent fully knows how to handle. It is selling internet access directly to people, bypassing the companies and the rules that have controlled African telecoms for decades. This is not just a tech story. It is a quiet war over who controls the flow of information across an entire continent. Let's start with the basics. A telecom monopoly is when one company or a small group of companies controls almost all phone and internet service in a country. For years, that has been normal in Africa. Big national operators built towers, laid cables, and signed deals with governments. In exchange, they got protection, few rivals, predictable profits. Then came Starlink. Starlink is a satellite internet service built by SpaceX, Elon Musk's space company. Instead of running cables or building towers, it uses thousands of small satellites in low orbit to beam internet straight to a dish on your roof. No telephone poles, no fiber trenches, no local infrastructure at all. For rural Africa, where over 80% of some populations have never had reliable internet, that sounds like a miracle. For the telecom giants who built their empires on infrastructure, it sounds like a threat. So, what happened next? Starlink launched in Nigeria in January 2023. It quickly became one of the fastest growing internet providers in the country, especially in areas mobile networks had never properly reached. Word spread. Within 2 years, Starlink had pushed into roughly 18 African nations. But here's where the story turns. Many of those governments were not ready, and some were not willing. In South Africa, the country's biggest economy, Starlink hit a wall. The regulator, ICASA, said Starlink could not legally operate without a telecom license. And to get that license, South African law requires 30% local ownership by historically disadvantaged groups, a policy known as Black Economic Empowerment, or BEE. It exists to correct decades of economic exclusion under apartheid. Starlink's global business model does not work that way. It does not give away ownership stakes to enter a market, so it simply didn't apply. By 2025, frustration boiled over. South African users found their service suspended. One of the country's largest carriers, Vodacom, publicly backed the ban, saying economic transformation rules could not be bypassed for a foreign satellite company. Meanwhile, something stranger was happening. A mysterious distributor began selling Starlink kits anyway, operating in a legal gray zone, drawing accusations in Parliament of being a hidden front for SpaceX. The company denied it, but the dishes kept appearing on rooftops across the country. So why does this matter beyond South Africa? Because the same fight has been playing out almost everywhere Starlink goes. Zimbabwe shut it down over licensing. Botswana rejected its application outright. Namibia formally denied it a license, citing local ownership rules. The Democratic Republic of Congo banned it in 2024 over fears that armed rebel groups could use it to communicate, then reversed course in 2025 and granted a license after all. Even the Central African Republic, where internet access reaches barely 14% of the population, welcomed Starlink commercially in 2026, then moved to crack down on unauthorized kits brought in through informal channels, citing national security and the need to track who is actually using the service. Pattern reframed. This is not really a story about satellites. It's a story about control. Telecom networks have always been more than business. They're how governments monitor information, collect tax revenue, and protect politically connected companies. Starlink threatens all three at once. It is hard to tax, hard to monitor, and nearly impossible to switch off at a border. For governments, that's the real fear. Not that Starlink is foreign, but that it's ungovernable in the old sense. For ordinary Africans, especially in rural communities, the calculation looks completely different. A fishing village with no cell tower for 50 miles doesn't care about ownership percentages. It cares about whether a child can finally take an online exam or a clinic can send a lab result to a city hospital. That tension between national policy and basic connectivity is the real battlefield. So where does this go next? Some governments are negotiating. Reports suggest regulators are exploring equity equivalent programs, alternative ways for foreign companies to meet local ownership goals without giving up shares directly. If that model spreads, it could become the blueprint for how satellite internet enters Africa legally, instead of through grey market dishes and parliamentary shouting matches. But for now, the standoff continues. Dishes keep arriving, bans keep getting announced, and quietly reversed. A satellite passes overhead again, still just a dot in the sky. But on the ground, it has already changed who holds the power over Africa's connection to the world. If you like this story and want to know more about the companies, entrepreneurs, industries, scandals, and business empires shaping the African continent, hit like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.